Hey, what's up y'all? This is William, the Permaculture Consultant, and today I'm going to show you guys the one trick you need to know to turn your soil from something crappy like this into something fantastic like this. And this technique can be replicated no matter your soil type, no matter where you live. If plants can grow, you can follow the same exact trick or technique and fix your crappy soil. Now, this video is going to be in 3 different segments. The first part, I'm going to talk about the technique itself. The second part, I'm going to show you guys how to sample your soil, and there's a reason for that. I'll get into that in a second. And then the third part will be the actual end results. In this video, I'm also announcing that soil biology testing is open. So if you want to send your sample to me, your soil sample to me, and I can look under a microscope, determine what biology is there, what you need to do, what's there, what doesn't need to be there, if there's any good guys, any bad guys, and then how to remediate that, then hit up the email down below. And the reason that this video is segmented into 3 different parts is because the first part, I'm going to teach you guys how to actually do the technique. The second part is going to be how to sample your soil properly to send to me. And then the third part of this video is going to be looking at the soil under the microscope and then determining the results after that. So if you want to skip directly to the results, if you want to see the technique and then the results, then you can skip around if you want to. And if you're looking to specifically get a sample from your property to send to me, then you can skip directly to that part too. Now, before we get into that, remember I do permaculture consultations where I come to your property, give you an order of operations, what to do and when to do it. Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival, that's going to be in July, link down below. And Midwest Preparedness Conference, that's coming up here real soon in May. That's linked down below as well. I'll be teaching at both events. Can't wait to see you guys there. That being said, let's get started. Now, some of you have been able to guess the technique I'm referring to, and that is cover crops. Believe it or not, my garden is in all this dense, heavy growth. Now, the benefit of cover crops and keeping one year round is that you're constantly feeding the soil microbes. You're feeding the microbes without you involved at all. Like, this is the lazy way of getting, and super efficient way of getting your soil back to a place it needs to be. Instead of it being like some heavy, dense, super hard clay or like nutrient deficient sand or even like some difficult to deal with silt, no matter what type of soil you have, no matter where you live, you can keep an established cover crop year round. Now, depending on where you live is going to determine what cover crop you keep. Right here, you can see some, well, a goldenrod in the back, but you can also see like a whole field of crimson clover right here. This has been my main cover crop for this area, is the crimson clover. The reason for that is because it usually lives about, like, unless we have like a super hard winter here in Texas, we can usually keep the clover at least in place. Like, it might not necessarily grow, but at least it'll occupy the space and keep feeding the microbes. So how does this specifically work? Your plants, when they're in a vegetative state, they shoot down exudates into the soil, which is just sugar plus a grocery list for the microbes that benefit from those sugars or exudates. Now, in exchange for that sugar, the microbe goes and glues itself to inorganic matter. So your sands, your silts, your clays, your rocks, your pebbles, all that stuff. It glues itself to that and it derives whatever this plant needs from the inorganic matter. Now, that microbe, the bacteria or the simple fungi or whatever, can't make that direct transaction between the plant and the microbe. Like, it can't give the grocery list directly to the plant. So what needs to happen is that it needs to be eaten by a predator and then pooped out, and then the plant benefits. That is basically the soil food web, right? Now, a lot of people think that like worms are in the bottom of the food chain when it comes to like a food web above the soil, right? That's not the case in the soil. That's not the case at all in the soil. In the soil, worms are like the top dog. They're the top predator. They kind of keep everything in check. Like, they are the killer whale of the soil, right? Great whites don't mess with them. Nothing else messes with them, except for like above the soil, birds and stuff like that eat them. Now, why is this important? If I can feed my microbes, if I can get them to reproduce, replicate, multiply, get bigger in numbers, then I no longer have a few things. I no longer have pests. I no longer have diseases. I no longer have like bad crops. I have A+ crops every single time if I can get my soil biology squared away. The microbes are basically fertilization on demand. Whatever the plant needs, it's being provided on demand. Instead of having, you know, come through and apply 30-30-30 or fish emulsion, or even like the the Korean natural farming methods, the anaerobic teas and stuff, this system right here, this method right here, completely removes me from the process other than planting, perhaps sometimes weeding in the form of like making sure there's no competition for sunlight, and then harvesting. That's all I have to do. That's all I have to do to garden. For example, last year in these two front beds right here, I kept a living cover crop and I planted sweet potatoes in these two front beds right here. I watered those sweet potato slips in, and then that was the last time I watered them. Nothing else after that. Like, I live in Texas and I didn't have to water my sweet potatoes at all, except for when I first planted them, I watered them in, and that was absolutely it, which is freaking incredible for where I live in Texas. Like, there's guaranteed about 2 months of drought every single year in Texas, and my sweet potatoes were completely unaffected. Now, how do I establish a cover crop? Once you have like bare soil, or if you have vegetation existing, what I would do is completely mow it down as low as you can go. And don't like bag it or anything like that. Just basically chop and drop with a mower, a weed eater, a scythe, whatever you have. You're gonna mow it down as low as it can go. And then you're gonna pick a preferred cover crop, depending on where you live, depending on the season, is going to determine the cover crop that you keep. But generally, like a variety of clover generally works in most places. So keep that in mind. But then after you mow everything down, you're going to seed heavily. I want a freaking carpet of green material. I want a full-blown carpet. I don't want to be able to see the soil. Where in nature do you see exposed soil? Very few places, and they're usually not very productive. And I'm going to water it until I see the seed actually germinating, and then I'm going to walk away. And that's how you establish a cover crop. Also, you have to make sure you stop doing any bad practices after that as well. Bad practices include creating anaerobic conditions. So like your, anaerobic teas and stuff like that, those create anaerobic conditions, as well as compaction. So stay away from compaction and anaerobic conditions, and this should help you get closer to a permanent fix. Now, it's not as good as compost extracts or compost teas or anything, but unlike compost teas and extracts, this eliminates you from the equation once this is growing. This is like the lazy way to fix your soil. This is also going to take a little bit longer than your compost teas and your compost extracts. So just keep that in mind. So let's get into the sampling. I tested my soil about this time a year ago. And this was before I had any established cover crops or anything like that. This was abandoned, completely abandoned. And I'm gonna compare today's results to last year's results, keeping a year-round cover crop. And we're gonna see how much better my soil is from keeping a cover crop. We're gonna get like tangible freaking results on how much better my soil is because of the cover crop. Now, the sampling method is what I suggest you guys following. If you plan on sending me a soil sample to do like a soil biology test, this is generally what you want to do to get as accurate results as possible. And that's the whole goal, is to get as accurate results as possible, so that way we can accurately build from there and then remediate from there. So that being said, let's get started on the sampling part. So as far as sampling the garden, I'm going to pick 3 different random locations in my garden, avoiding any outlier locations, right? And that applies to if I'm testing pastures or a food forest or an orchard. You're going to pick 3 random locations. If you're testing something with trees, then you're going to go halfway between the trunk and the drip line of the tree. That's where you're going to pull your samples from 3 random locations in your orchard or your food forest. And then I'm going to put them in this Ziploc baggie here. So let's go ahead and get those 3 different samples, and then we'll go from there. So for this first sample, the first thing I'm going to do is clear any vegetation right there that's going to be in the way. It's not going to give me, it's blocking my access from the soil basically. So, and this is a rice knife, by the way. If you want one of these, check out Permapassure's farm. They got rice knives for sale, and it's one of the handiest garden tools you can get. And you don't have to clear this much. I'm just trying to make it visible on camera. I'm then gonna take my trowel, and you can use an apple corer. That's typically what's suggested, but most people have a trowel that they already use in their garden. So why get the apple core dirty? But I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna clear any organic matter that's on the surface of the soil, because I'm not testing organic matter, I'm testing the actual soil. And then I'm gonna take a sample, about that much. In fact, that's a little bit more than what I even need. I don't need even this much soil, but I'm gonna try to leave as much organic matter in the ground as possible, and I only want the actual soil. And I'm going to copy this for 3 different locations. Now, I'm going to put all this in a Ziploc bag, and I'm going to get 2 more locations, and then we'll be good to go. Here's our second soil sample, and I'm going to throw that in the bag. And then we need 1 more soil sample. Now, once I have my 3 different samples, I'm gonna gently incorporate all the soil. And whenever it gets to me, I'll do that anyway, so don't focus too much on that. But I'm gonna gently incorporate the soil all together so I can get an accurate, like, overall assessment of your particular garden. Now, if you're wanting a particular bed tested, then take 3 random locations from that particular bed. If you're wanting your overall garden soil tested, like everywhere in your garden tested, then 3 random locations throughout your entire garden. If you're wanting your pastures tested, then 3 random locations in your pasture. And if you're wanting your orchard or food forest tested, 3 random locations within that system, but make sure that the samples are taken halfway between your trunk and your drip line. And your drip line is basically where your leaves end. If I'm a tree right here, like my hand is the tree, that drip line, like in my body is the trunk, I'm gonna take the sample like right in here where my elbow is. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. And I'm gonna gently, I'm not gonna compress it, I'm not gonna compact it or anything like that. I'm just gonna gently incorporate all the materials. And whenever I send it, I'm going to obviously seal the bag, but I'm gonna try to leave as much oxygen in this bag as possible. Because I don't want my aerobic microbes suffocating and dying from lack of oxygen. Now, when you mail this, try your best to overnight it to me, so that way we can just maintain as accurate results as possible. And then when I'm testing it, I'll keep in mind, like, hey, if you're not able to overnight it, if it takes like 2 days or so to get to me, I'll keep that in mind and kind of hedge the results according to that. And yeah, so just keep that in mind. But now this is how, and then also like label on the Ziploc, like where the location was derived from and stuff like that. So that way we know in the future, whenever you send more tests to see how the garden is doing, how the soil is improving and stuff, that way we can keep a log, and I'll keep track of like how many organisms you had the first time, what kinds, and then the second time we can see if there's an improvement or if it's gone backwards, stuff like that. Just keeping accurate scientific results. Now, that's how you sample. Now I'm gonna go find out the results, and I'm gonna compare them to last year's results to see if there's any improvement and how much my soil is improved just from cover crops. Now, as far as testing goes, I have to take my garden soil here and I have to make a dilution, which is just basically the combination of clean filtered water plus the soil, so that way I can take a drop of it, put it underneath the slide, and then get it under my microscope, and then I can see, you know, everything on screen and then through the eyepieces and stuff like that. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and then we're gonna go through the assessment, and then I should have the results before too long. There's a lot to this. There's way more than what I can just describe in a video. If you're interested in doing this, then check out the Soil Food Web class from Dr. Elaine Ingham. That's how I learned. So yeah, if you're interested in doing soil biology tests, check her out. Not really something that I can teach, especially in this video. All right, so we got the results. It's pretty shocking. So we'll go ahead and get these written down, and then we'll go back to the property and talk about the results. All right, so here's the results. So the test that I did before, which was about a year ago before the cover crops, I had a lot of bacteria basically, which in most places that's what you're gonna find if it's pretty crappy soil. It's gonna be heavily bacteria dominant. And in fact, it was in the like 0.3 range bacteria dominant, which grows like a lot of weeds, a lot of Johnson grass, a lot of Bermuda grass, stuff like that. It's not necessarily conducive to growing fruits and vegetables and stuff like that in the garden. Now, I had a lot of bacteria. I think I saw 1 root-feeding nematode, which is a bad guy. Most varieties of nematodes are decent, good guys. Root-feeding nematodes are bad guys, so same as like switcher nematodes. Switcher nematodes can go from eating fungi to eating roots if there's no fungi available. So they can be bad guys, they can be good guys, kind of like Batman or something. But most varieties of nematodes are actually good guys, and you actually need them. If worms, like earthworms or composting worms, are killer whales in the ocean, Nematodes are more like the great white sharks of the ocean, right? So I had a couple of the bad nematodes in that test, a lot of bacteria. I don't think I saw any fungi, a lot of actinobacteria, stuff like that. And my ratio was 0.3, which is far from what I wanted it to be at. Now, with just a year of cover crops and no other, like, you know, compost teas or extracts or anything like that involved, my bacteria, so the minimum for BioComplete, which is like top-notch soil, is 135 micrograms per gram for fungi and bacteria, minimum of 10,000 protozoa per gram, 100 nematodes per gram, and then less than 5 ciliates per drop of, you know, my dilution and everything. Ciliates are kind of like those in-between species. They can be good, they can be bad. They're in like the facultative region between aerobic and anaerobic. If you're growing brassicas and stuff, you kind of need it in that stage. This soil actually is not in that stage, so brassicas wouldn't do too well in this soil given the ratio I'm at right now. So here's what's in the soil now. I have 274 micrograms of bacteria per gram. I have 299 micrograms of fungi per gram. Sorry, I'm having trouble reading my own handwriting. And then whenever you guys do the soil test, thankfully it'll be all typed up so you won't have to read my handwriting. I have 13,000 protozoa per gram. I have 70 nematodes per gram. And my fungal to bacteria ratio is 1.07. So what does this mean? It means I need to increase my nematodes, which I can do a nematode infusion with my compost. I can cut a potato in half, put it on top of my compost. That's going to extract the nematodes from my compost, scrape that up, suspend it in water, and then I can spray my beds with it, and that'll extract beneficial nematodes to get that nutrient cycling going. They're going to eat the prey, poop it out, benefits the plants. And then I also need to kind of lower my fungi, because right now I want it to be at a ratio of 1, like 1 to 1, to benefit, like, and I'm nitpicking by saying that. But I need to increase the nematodes and I need to lower the fungi a little bit and get it a little bit more bacteria dominant. And it could just be like, it's not a stable, like, stays at this level like 100% of the time. It's kind of like deer, where the population dips or drops, goes up a little bit, then the predators knock it back down, goes up a little bit, predators knock it back down. It's kind of like that little wave feature going on. So it could have just been like in that particular phase at that moment. But this soil right here is absolutely perfect for growing your traditional garden varieties and everything. It's not necessarily perfect for trees because they need way higher fungi levels than what's provided here, but absolutely perfect. And then I'm also in a phase right now where a lot of people are worried about Bermuda grass in their gardens and stuff. Other than the edges of the beds where the bed meets the actual grass area and stuff like that, I'm not growing grasses in the middle of my beds because the ratio does not allow for that. I do not grow like a lot of your weeds in these beds because of the ratio does not allow for that. It does not support weeds and everything, which should make you think differently about what clover is, about what vetch is, about what goldenrod is. Those things shouldn't be considered weeds. So yeah, that's freaking fantastic for just keeping a year worth of cover crop. And I'm not even at the peak of what this cover crop can do yet. I'm just playing games over here. I'm just having fun out here. So hopefully this was insightful for you guys. This is insane. See, what's so cool about this soil biological testing now is that, okay, with permaculture for years, we knew the correct practices, we knew the things to avoid, but we didn't have the actual, like, scientific data to back it up, right? We could only, like, kind of anecdotally show you via results, like the benefits of, you know, not tilling, not creating compaction, not using the Khyber-Bosch method of nitrogen-based fertilizers, not using petroleum products and stuff like that in our gardens. Like, we can only, like, we didn't have the exact, like, here's the reasons why, here's the guys responsible for the nutrient cycling within your garden, stuff like that. Now we do. Now I can tell you exactly what's in your garden, what needs to be fixed, or in your pastures, or in your food forest, or in your orchards, anything like that. Depending on what you're going to want, determines the ratio that you need and stuff like that. But now we can actually look at the soil and provide proof that these methods are good, that these methods are working, that like this is the way to go. So, man, I got all fired up at the end of the video. That's wild. Yeah, before the ratio was at 0.3, which equals weeds and Bermuda grass. Now it's at 1.07, and all I did was put a freaking cover crop down. All I did was mimic nature. All I did was use the example nature's giving me and following that and occupying the space in the ground. So if you would like me to do a soil test for you, if you'd like a report on your soil, and then for me to keep track of where your soil is going, what progression you need, and then a solution to fix your soil issues, then hit up the email down below, send me a text or send me a message saying, hey, I'd like to do some soil testing, and I'll get back with you. This is freaking cool, man. And then with that soil test, it'll involve like a 30-minute call to afterwards, so we can get you on track and get you squared away as far as like what you need to do and when to do it in order to get you in the correct ratio for what you want to grow. So hopefully this video was a blessing to you. Hopefully it was as cool to you as it is to me. This is freaking awesome. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.